Welcome to the Munro Review, where it's all about connecting, sharing, and valuing the arts in the Central San Joaquin Valley. I'm Donald Munro. Today is January 30th, and we are here to talk about the busy art scene in February. We're excited to present an all-theater show for you today. We have three fascinating productions to look at: the recent Tony Award-winning hit The Humans at Fresno City College, the Harry Potter-inspired Puffs at Selma Art Center, and special performances of the original play, The Valentine, at the Vista Theater. But first, let's recap some of what I've been covering at MunroReview.com. In last month's show, I told you that I raved about Good Company's Elf at Roger Rocca's Dinner Theater. And now I am back with an even bigger rave for Something Rotten. Yes, that is the name of the musical, and far from being rotten, it's sublimely silly and impeccably performed. The time is the Renaissance, the place is England, and the superstar is Shakespeare, played by Sean Williams as a sexed-up, coyly narcissistic literary celebrity. There's a plot device involving a bitter rival, who's played by a great Jacob Phelan, and a mediocre soothsayer, played by the wonderful Steve Souza, who tries to predict what Shakespeare's big hit will be. We end up with one of those classic, truly bad show-within-a-show scenarios, sort of like The Producers. In this case, we end up seeing a version of Omelette instead of Hamlet. Director Lori Pisano brings together an excellent cast, which includes a terrific performance by Roger Christensen as Brother Jeremiah, the resident religious scold who spends his time railing against theater, poetry, having fun, all that good stuff, while at the same time blundering into various word salads that could land on the menu of your local gay pub. And then there's newcomer Carol Foose, an East Coast transplant to Fresno. She plays Portia, daughter of the local Puritan rabble-rouser, and the daughter of Christensen's character. Her stage presence, with accentuated movements, crisp double entendres, and exaggerated trilling hints of naughtiness, elevates the material to a higher comic level. Rotten is only the first show of the 2020 season at GCP, and I'm already thinking it has to be a front runner for Best GCP Production of the Year. Some other stories of interest from last month. I wrote all about Fresno Philharmonic music director Ray Hatoda's big afternoon as she both conducted and played the piano in the Beethoven Triple Concerto. The physicality of the endeavor was fascinating to witness. Hatoda had to be as aware of her body as she was of the music, as she negotiated the piano bench, as she stood and sat, transitioned between conducting and playing, and kept her conducting hands high enough for the players to get the beat. The audience loved it. Plus, I previewed the Fresno Art Museum's impressive new slate of winter and spring exhibitions, which continue through June. So you have plenty of time to get over to see them. The main exhibition fills most of the museum, and it's essentially a story about a little California high school that, against the odds, put together an amazing collection of California Impressionism art. Now, let's welcome our first guests. James Knudsen, Christy Hathaway, and Brandy Martin are all actors in the hot new play, The Humans, which opens February 28th at Fresno City College. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thanks. Good to be here. Thanks.
So I have a story, a show-off story to tell about The Humans. I was in Chicago. This was a few years ago. I had one opportunity to see a show. I opened the Chicago Tribune. Completely by blind luck, I just picked The Humans because, you know, it was as far from Broadway as you can get at that point. And then it ends up getting raves. It goes to New York. It goes off Broadway, on Broadway, wins the Tony Award, nominated for the Pulitzer. Pretty good prediction, wouldn't you say? Or pretty good choice.
Good
yes.
choice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So Brandy, tell us a little about this show. What can people expect?
This show is about a family that gathers for Thanksgiving in New York. Two of the characters actually live in New York and everyone else travels there. Most of the family is actually from a town called Scranton, which is near Philadelphia. So as a cast, we've actually been working on the Scranton accent, which is very difficult. I keep slipping into New York, and it's not quite that, and it's not quite Philadelphia either. It's specific. But having come from Scranton, which is a small town, I actually feel it's a lot like Fresno because it's in between some other bigger cities that are more well known. This family is very middle class, and the youngest daughter has moved to New York, moved in with her boyfriend in a duplex apartment in Chinatown, and we are all gathering for Thanksgiving dinner. And so this play is very much a slice of life in the world of this family. There are no scene breaks. Once we open the door to begin Thanksgiving dinner, the play goes right through to the end with no blackouts, no scene transitions. It's just us on stage, and we're completely exposed with all of our human problems that we have.
So James, you were telling me that you've never had a Thanksgiving dinner actually that went this short, right?
Yeah.
But it's basically the entire dinner, and you play
The father.
the father.
Of these two characters.
And so tell us about this father.
He's a dad. He is. You mentioned the family being middle class, and they're middle class, but just, I mean, it's one of those things that we hear about in the news, that everybody says they're middle class, but the bar keeps getting lower and lower, and their bar's gotten pretty low. So he's worked at a school for most of his life. He's married. He has his 2 children, and he also takes care of his mother, who is in pretty advanced dementia.
And she is at the dinner.
She's at the dinner as well. Yes, she's made the trip.
And so, Christy, you play the younger daughter. Yes. Tell us about, so both of the daughters have some pretty serious issues going on. So tell us about that.
Yes, well, Amy has a lot of sort of gastrointestinal issues that we see throughout the show, and how that can affect the quality of life of someone who's recently gone through a breakup and is also, struggling at her job. And as for Bridget, she is...
And that's your character.
That's
Bridget.
me, baby. Yeah, she is broke, struggling with college loans, and somehow also living in a duplex apartment. We wonder about how she's using that unemployment money that she's getting, and at the same time having a lot of problems that she thought were resolved with her parents, and yet they're still coming up. And so there are a lot of points of tension, and for Bridget, trying to keep a really cool face and just enjoy this family dinner, and noticing how her own stress in her personal life and the stressors between her parents and even Amy sometimes, how that gets in the way of just having a nice time.
So this is a hard play to describe in terms of plot, because it really is. It's in real time. It's a dinner. I guess the safe thing to say without giving anything away is that you start to learn about each of these characters kind of really in depth, and things kind of slip out. Is that how you describe it, Brandy?
I would say that each of these characters is a fully fleshed out human being, and none of them are perfect. And they've all made mistakes. They've all dealt with very human problems. Amy's chronic illness is certainly an issue at Thanksgiving dinner. But because of that, we're in a family situation where there's a lot of love in this family, but there's a lot of misunderstanding each other as well. So they fight, but it's fighting through caring about each other, maybe a little too much. And of course, as daughters, sometimes your parents, they love you a lot, but they love you in a way that isn't exactly helpful in the moment. It's not going to solve that chronic illness. What mom and dad want to do for their daughters is not going to fix all the problems, but talking about it sometimes makes it worse. And so there's all of that tension happening in each of these scenes. And also, we are trying to have a good time. We haven't seen each other in a long time.
Yeah, and it's still a holiday.
It's still a holiday.
Right,
you want to make it nice, but everyone's issues are really getting in the way.
Yeah. So Brandy, you are a longtime fixture on the Fresno theater scene. You've come back from doing your master's. James, you are teaching at
Fresno City College.
Fresno City College. Christy, you're our student up here, right?
I'm the student.
Tell us about the student mentor design of this show.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting situation where some of these roles are double cast, some of them are not. So me and Leslie, who plays the mother, and James, we're sort of in both casts, and then all the other roles are double cast. But in that cast that we primarily are rehearsing with on the stage right now, that cast is all faculty, me, the student, and then, Brandy has her master's, so it's a really neat opportunity because the understudies and the people who are double cast, they get to watch, learn, try their hand at it, and really do amazing work, come up with their own ideas, but also we're sort of in this mentorship program throughout the show of learning from people who have had more education in theater. So that makes our show really unique for sure.
Okay.
And those students are really talented.
So James, I'm going to put you on the spot. This sounds pretty deep and it sounds pretty brutal. Why should you go and see a show like this that gets right down into the depths of human psyche?
Well, if you know, I say to students, I've done all the nice theater I ever need to do in my life. And this is not necessarily a nice piece of theater in that it's going to tie everything up in a bow and all that. But it is going to give you a look into a real family and how they are dealing with things. And our director made the comment that, you know, a lot of times you see stories where the family is dysfunctional and disintegrates and all that. This family is not perfect, and it would certainly be described as dysfunctional by some, but they're staying in it. They are staying in the fight and working on what they've got to work on. So I think that's something to
And that's what we
take a
all have
look
to
at.
do. And it's also great to be able to just go to see an evening of really well-written, well-acted theater. So, Brandy, tell me, when does the show open and how long does it run for?
Oh no, February
Your cast members can help you.
28th through March
7th.
7th.
March 7th. So not a very long run. So you have to, just basically a 2-weekend run.
Right,
So.
right. And also because since it's double cast, I'm sure we'll have that information out there.
Right.
But no matter when you come, it's going to be an interesting, fun production.
Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, Donald.
Now let's move outside the studio for a moment. Producer Kyle Lowe and I took the short drive to the Selma Arts Center for a preview of the play Puffs. We found some magic in store for us. We are here at the Selma Arts Center for a sneak preview of the play Puffs, which opens February 14th. It's about a certain wizarding school that you might recognize. So we're here with Adam Chavez, who is co-director of Puffs at Selma Arts Center. Now, I haven't seen the show. I've heard a description of it, and
yes.
it sure sounds a lot like Harry Potter. Is that
one
the
could
case?
say it's very similar to a certain wizarding school that the community is familiar with. But it takes place in a certain wizarding school in a certain wizarding time when another famous boy wizard was going to this school. There's 4 houses: the Braves, the Smarts, the Snakes, and then the Puffs. So this is a story of, I guess you could say, the losers and what they were doing during this time of this famous boy who lived.
So this famous boy, who is not necessarily Harry Potter, does he show up in the play? Or?
Yeah, and that's the neat thing. There's a lot of familiar characters that resemble other ones that you're used to that pop in here and there. It's fun to see, their point of view on like all these things that were happening at their school during this time, and what their role was in it, and maybe how little attention they actually got compared to some other people.
So you don't have to be a Harry Potter, I guess I can say Harry Potter.
Yeah, sure.
You don't have to be a Harry Potter fan to get all the references in the show.
No, yeah, not necessarily. This show has its own plot, its own story, and their own characters that you get attached to. So you don't have to know another story to get this one. Does it help? Sure. Is it funnier? Definitely. But it's a really fun, heartwarming story, and I cannot stop laughing at rehearsals. I'm almost distracting at some points.
So what house would you be in? I know that's a question that
Yes.
fans often ask.
The whole
each other.
cast, actually. We just did a poll in our group, and it turns out I'm one of 2 Braves in the entire cast. Go figure. So, no, I'm not a Puff, unfortunately, but I'm starting to steer as a secondary Puff, I think. Yeah, this cast is amazing, and we have a lot of true puffs down there, definitely.
What characteristics make up the puffs? If you land in that school?
Yeah, it's something I've had to think a lot about in sort of building the character, and it's the loyalty. The loyalty to friends and the willingness to do the right thing, I feel, is really the defining characteristics. They joke a lot about just being really nice is another defining characteristic, and I would definitely say that just that friendliness, that just exuberant joy all the time, that would definitely be a defining characteristic as well. So yeah, it's primarily loyalty and just being really kind all the time.
Okay,
We're trying one's best to do that.
So can you give us one example of a Harry Potter allusion that is made that would connect with fans?
I would say a lot of the characters referenced, in particular a certain potions teacher. A lot of characters are being presented in this show that any Harry Potter fan is going to recognize, just due to Harry Potter's massive internet presence, internet memes, and things like that. There's just so much in this that people are going to recognize. But I would say that a certain potions teacher, in particular, people are going to recognize, especially with the actor playing him in our show, doing such a fantastic voice for him. That's going to, I think, really click with audiences.
My character, her name is Megan Jones, and so she is the daughter of a wizard, and of two wizards, and we only really hear about her mother though, and so the show takes place in a wizarding world where these children start their first year at this wizarding school, and they're all kind of new to this, don't really know what's going on, all kind of quirky in their own ways, and she specifically does not want to be in the group that she's in. She thinks that she was meant to be in a totally different group. Her whole family has been a part of that group, and she's like, this is not me. I'm not supposed to be here. I was put in the wrong group, and no.
So can you tell us a little bit about the four groups in this
definitely.
version? So you're
we're a puff. We're puffs, yes. And then there are the braves, there are the smarts, and there are the snakes. And so the braves are brave, the smarts are smart, and the snakes are, depending on what people say, I guess you could think of them the way that kind of pop culture has used the term snakes, where you're like, oh, this person's a snake. The snakes are snakes. And then...
So who did your character, which school did you want to be in?
My character, Megan, thinks that she should have been a snake. She's like, I do not want to be a puff. Puffs aren't special. I don't like them. They have nothing good to offer this world. I should be a snake. And that's who her whole life felt like she should be. And it's partially because her mom became a minion, I guess, of a really evil wizard. And she thinks that
Again, we can't say the actual name.
Exactly.
Right?
And of course, we don't want to say that name either. That is a name that should not be spoken out loud.
Exactly. So two reasons, copyright and eternal damnation or whatever. Yes.
And so she is like, my mom was able to do this, and that's totally not like a puff. And so even though my mom was in the house, obviously I'm supposed to be like my mom, and I'm supposed to do something bigger and more snake-like, right? And so she's kind of having to come to terms with the fact that she's been placed with this group of people who she does not want to be with, and she finds a couple of friends who are Oliver and Wayne, and they're kind of like the only silver lining for her within this group. And so you kind of get to see her journey of do I belong here? Do I not belong here? Was I put in this? Did the hat get it right? Did the hat get it wrong? Yeah.
My name is Sammy, and I play Susie as well as Harry, the boy who lived, and I play different other characters. I have a puppet.
So you're actually Harry.
I am the boy who lived, yeah.
And this is a different experience for you because you were actually backstage most of the time in some arts productions. Tell us, what do you do backstage usually?
I'm actually up in the booth most of the time.
Oh, up in the booth.
Yeah, I stage managed for a few shows here, but mostly what I do here is I work with Dominic Grijalva, and he's of course, in New York. And so I kind of help map and do projections with him, and we collaborate. And I mapped for Curious Incident, I mapped for High School Musical, and all of these different shows. So he designs, and then we kind of work together.
So is this your first time on stage for Selma?
For Selma, yeah. I haven't had a speaking role in a show since I was 17, and I'm 22.
And how do you feel about that? Are you excited?
I'm excited because I'm a huge Harry Potter nerd. I've loved Harry Potter from the second I could remember. And although I'm incredibly nervous, I'm really excited and grateful for the opportunity that they didn't just see a techie on an application and kind of throw it away. They gave me a shot, and eventually, I guess I pulled through at callbacks, especially.
Puffs opens at the Selma Art Center on February 14th and runs through February 29th. Now let's take a look at the list, a preview of cultural events in February. Rachmaninoff and Shostakovich are on the program at the next Fresno Philharmonic concert on February 16th, which features piano great Barry Douglas. Good Company Players opens the play Enchanted April on February 28th at the Second Space Theater. At Fresno State, the Contemporary Dance Ensemble performs February 14th through 22nd. And the Youth Orchestras of Fresno's Big February Bash is on the 9th, featuring hundreds of gifted students and cello superstar Vadim Gluzman. Now let's welcome a special couple. Mark and Denise Norwood are here to tell us about the Valentine. It opens, appropriately enough, on Valentine's Day. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us, Donald.
So
it's a
there's
pleasure.
so much to talk about this show.
Yeah.
I guess the first would be that you are bringing this back. It's played a couple of times.
Yes.
Before, but years ago.
Correct. The first production was in 2004, and then we restaged it in 2013, and so excited to bring it back in 2020.
And it's kind of an anniversary present for each other, wouldn't you say?
It absolutely is.
What anniversary did you just celebrate?
37.
Okay. Well, Mark, can you tell us a little about the structure of the play? What are people going to see?
Well, they're going to see and they're going to hear such a delightfully written story that takes a couple from 4th grade all the way through their relationship, all through the reading of letters, which sounds on the surface, that could be a little bit tedious perhaps, but it's so well written. And as an actor, reading these letters and letting the words connect with the audience without a lot of physicality, it gives me chills every time I read it, every time I perform it. It's so well written, and the audience gets brought along with this love story that includes laughter, it includes tears, and it's absolutely a slice of life that is so beautifully written, and it's an honor to present it.
So Denise, you play not yourself, but there is an autobiographical element here, right?
Yes, I guess you could say I play my own mother in a way, because the Valentine was inspired by and borrows heavily from the life and relationship of my parents. So I do play the main female character, Louise, and Mark plays Stuart, and they are based on my parents.
And do you actually use words from those original letters? Any of the original words, or?
No.
But you were inspired.
Correct.
By the relationship.
Yes.
And
yes.
What time period are we talking about?
We are covering the time period from the Korean War. Well, actually, they meet in the 4th grade, so around the 1930s. And then up through the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s, and then on to the rest of the life of this couple.
And I understand that your mom is going to be in the audience.
She is. She's 90 years old now. My father has passed away, but she will be there, and so excited. Yeah.
So, Mark, writing letters is kind of a lost art these days. People don't
sure.
do it as often. I guess the closest you might come to it is people writing social media posts.
Well,
what do you think we've lost in
Well,
terms of losing that letter writing tradition?
I think it's losing and gaining. But the world has sped up so much that people don't have the luxury of sitting down and actually writing, taking pen and paper is foreign. And I know that there's a debate right now, should kids even be taught cursive writing in the curriculum in grade school? So it's just, I hate to say anachronistic, but to look back at actually sitting down and writing a letter and pouring your soul through pen and paper, for me, writing and words, they're sacred. And anybody right now is a writer with their phone in their pocket, and they can pull out and they can write. I'm not a Twitter.
Tweeter, yeah.
Right, whatever. I mean, you're limited to so many characters.
Right,
and so in a way, our world is limited by sharing your story and emotion in that amount of time. In Shakespeare's day, plays went for hours. In Greeks, they did it for days. And that time period has gotten
Our
shorter
attention
and
span
shorter.
has gotten shorter.
Absolutely.
Well, you mentioned Shakespeare, and letters actually play a very large role in kind of the development of theater. And you start to think about how many shows. I mean, Shakespeare always had like letters in his shows.
Absolutely.
And then you get into even shows like, well, Cyrano de Bergerac, in terms of you don't get to meet the real character until, or the object of the affection, of this affection doesn't get to meet the real character till the end of the show.
That's right.
What's very interesting right now is I'm currently working at Knott's Berry Farm, so I write for a theme park audience, and the feedback I get from my superiors is cut to the chase. Get there the shortest possible way that you possibly can. This, in contrast, celebrates the words and the artistry of a powerful letter. And that, for me, is compelling. And that's what makes me so honored to be a part of this.
So if I try to persuade you, would you read a letter or two from
We
from
were
the
so
show?
hoping you'd ask.
You just happened to bring it. That's
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes, we were
Yes.
hoping.
Yes. So I will begin. My character is Stuart, and she's Louise. I call her Lou, and she calls me Stu. So the dear Lou is referring to Louise. Dear Lou, happy Valentine's Day to the working woman. I hope you know how proud I am of you. I'm sorry if I haven't shown it much, but I am proud of you and happy for you. You have an impressive position with so much potential for advancement, and you are the breadwinner for all of us. I, on the other hand, am a 40-something Air Force retiree with absolutely no idea of what to do. I feel pretty worthless, Lou. While I'm not trying to take away from your accomplishment, I just can't seem to get used to the fact that you make so much more money than I ever did. I find myself completely lost in this new world of women's liberation, war protests, long hair, short skirts, and free love. I must be the biggest square that ever lived. I just don't get any of it. Theo is so much like me. Is that okay? He's going into the army soon. Is that okay? And our daughter is dating someone who looks like Robin Hood and calls himself Oak. Is that okay? How can two kids from the same parents be so different? Bernie is busy protesting a war that Theo can't wait to be a part of. Bernie thinks that smelling flowers will bring world peace, and Theo wants to be an army medic. I don't get any of it. Thanks for listening to my midlife diatribe. The world just seems very unfamiliar all of a sudden. But as long as there's Valentine's Day and a letter to write, I know I'm still safe, still okay because you're here. Your writing husband, Stu.
Dear Stu, you are not the biggest square that ever lived. You are a splendid man who will find his way through anything. I agree that life was sure less complicated when we were young. But I believe that pushing ahead is ultimately better than clinging stubbornly to the past or even the status quo. Do I sound like a hippie? Maybe I've been talking to Bernie too much, and Oak too. Maybe it will cheer you up to know that Oak's real name is Michael Powers. But that is top secret. Oak would perish on the spot if he thought anyone knew. He's okay, Stu, passionate and smart. And inexplicably, Theo really likes him. The way Bernie, Oak, and Theo get along is a miracle of sorts. The answer to all of your "is that okay?" questions is yes. While I am understandably terrified at the thought of Theo going overseas, I support the kids in whatever gives them a true sense of who they are. And Theo just happens to be an exact replica of his very wonderful father. A fact that will serve him well, I'm sure. Stu, happy Valentine's Day, and please don't worry. Who cares who makes the money? You say you have no idea what to do, but I know you are looking into college on the GI Bill. You are doing so much more and are so much more than you'll ever know. You are my rock, remember? In case you forgot, here is the ancient original back to you. Love to you always, Stu. Your writing wife, Lou.
Oh, thank you. That sounds like a really special, touching performance. And you know, the backstory, knowing that it's the two of you performing this and that your mother and father, you're reflecting their lives, that really makes it special. So tell us, when can we see the Valentine and where?
Wonderful. Well, as you could probably predict, the Valentine will be shown over Valentine's weekend. So we open on Valentine's Day, February 14th, and we perform Saturday, February 15th, curtain at 8 p.m., and we perform Sunday matinee at 2 p.m. at the Vista Theater right there in the Tower District. And I want to just extend a cordial invitation to anyone who would like to experience a celebration of love and family.
Oh, it sounds like a great option for Valentine's Day. Just 3 performances, so you have to get there. Well, thank you, Denise and Mark, for being here.
Wonderful to see you again.
It's always great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Well, that wraps it up for this month's episode of the Munro Review. Be sure to keep up online at munroreview.com for previews, giveaways, profiles, reviews, and more. A big thank you to our volunteer crew, and a thank you to all of our guests, James Knudsen, Christy Hathaway, and Brandy Martin of The Humans, the cast and crew of Puffs, and our 2 special Valentines, Denise and Mark. And for all of you, please keep exploring and supporting the local arts scene. We'll see you next time.